Welcome, everyone, to SI Media with Jimmy Traina. Thank you so much for listening. We have a great show this week. Mike Florio from Pro Football Talk is on to discuss all things NFL. We get into the much lower ratings for the divisional round from last year, why that may be the case. Get into the NFL, possibly going to an 18-game schedule, when that can happen. Get into a lot of stuff about the Chiefs and the narrative around the Chiefs with the refs and Troy Aikman calling out the refs during that Chiefs-Texans game last week and the narrative that the league wants the Chiefs to win. So we get into all that and much, much, much more with Mike Florio. And then, of course, Sal Licata joins me for our weekly Traina Thoughts segment. Before we get to it, just a quick reminder. If you've missed any recent episodes of SI Media with Jimmy Traina, make sure you go into the archives and give those a listen and subscribe to the pod. We had Richard Deitch from The Athletic on the podcast last week to discuss all the latest sports media news. Ian Eagle from CBS was on the pod 2 weeks ago. Triple H from the WWE on the big move to Netflix was on the podcast in early January. So if you missed any of those, give them a listen. And again, please subscribe to the podcast. It helps tremendously. And you could also rate and review on Apple. Sal and I will probably read the Apple reviews next week. All right, let's get to this episode. Mike Florio from Pro Football Talk, followed by Sal Licata and Traina Thoughts. All right here, right now on SI Media with Jimmy Traina. All right, joining me now, perfect guest to have on as we head into the most important Sunday of the NFL season and the biggest, if you're a football fan. The Super Bowl, of course, is not for the real football fan. From Pro Football Talk, Mike Florio. Mike, how's it going?
Good, Jimmy. Good to talk to you again.
Good to talk to you. A lot of things going on with the league here as we come down to the end of the season, unfortunately. Let's start with this. I was surprised the ratings for the divisional games were as low as they were in terms of a comparison to last season. Obviously, the number in terms of television is still staggeringly good. But late window Saturday, Lions Commanders down from 37.5 million to 33.6 million for Fox. Early Sunday, Eagles and Rams down from the Lions-Bucks game, 40.4 to 37.8. You were never going to top, CBS was never going to top Chiefs-Bills from last year. It got 50.4 million, but that rating ended up being 43 million. And then in that first game with the Chiefs, the one game where the rating was up, but it was only up from 32.7 to 32.3 million, and that's because the Chiefs were in the game. The Chiefs are the biggest draw in the NFL now with the Cowboys. So let me start with any reasons why you think the ratings down across the board for what were good to very good to great divisional games.
Well, Jimmy, when the Super Wild Card, which is no longer Super Wild Card, just Wild Card weekend games came in 9% plus over last year, it was easy to look at it and say, this time we didn't have the Chiefs, we didn't have the Cowboys, we didn't have the Lions. So there was less inherent sizzle to the 6 games and the 12 teams that were playing over that 3-day window. This time around, you've got the Chiefs, you've got the Lions. The drop from Chiefs-Bills last year to Ravens-Bills this year, considering everyone was saying it was game of the year, I'm surprised how big of a drop it was. 8.5% overall, if my math is correct, and it rarely is. I just wonder whether this, and the numbers are great, but last year the average was 40 million. And again, I did the math. This year it was in the neighborhood of, I think, 36 and change, 8% drop.
Right.
I wonder if the 12-team college football playoff has had an impact, because we've had more football in January than ever before. And we had the semifinal games Thursday and Friday before the 3-day wildcard weekend. And now we've got the national championship game Monday night on the heels of the 2 divisional round days. I don't know whether that's a factor and whether there's just a saturation, or, you know, if you're a college football fan and you got no more college football to wait for, because it used to end on the Monday after the wild card round. I know I had to move it around some, but it used to end earlier. and there were fewer games. Now you got all these extra games, and maybe you don't stray toward the NFL games because you've had your fix of football if you're a college fan. But it's surprising, it's alarming, and it can't just be a matter of, well, the Chiefs weren't in that window on Sunday night, because the window the Chiefs were in didn't have the corresponding bump.
Right. Yeah, that's an interesting one about see, I would think the NFL has hurt the college football rating. And, I've said if college football was smart, they would have played their national championship game on Friday night instead of Monday night, because it just got swarmed by the NFL. What makes the lower ratings from last year really intriguing to me is that I think it's almost impossible to figure out, because while the wild card games were atrocious, the divisional games were all very good, and you had certain storylines in each one. You had the great visual in Philly with the snow. The Commanders, I think one issue is I don't know if the Commanders have gotten the national attention they deserve. If you're the fringe fan needs to understand there's no more exciting player in the league than Jaden Daniels. Maybe that hasn't caught on yet. Here on the East Coast, we had brutal weather on Sunday, so you would think more people in the house. Now, you also have an election day before the inauguration, so maybe people are more going to Fox and CNN. I don't know. But I would, again, the number is actually great for what TV is. I didn't think there would be the drop that there was. It was surprising to me, and I wonder what it means now going into these two games this Sunday. You have the Eagles and Commanders early Fox, and then you have Bills Chiefs late CBS. I think the AFC Championship game last year was around 56 million, with the Chiefs beating the Ravens. If they don't get close to that, it will be alarming, I think.
Oh, I agree with you. If they're short of that in the nighttime window versus the 3:00 window, which it was in last year, I agree. That's red flag, because the regular season rating, I think, was down 2.2% in an election year, where that's a pattern that we've seen play out in the past. 2.2, okay, fine. But then 9% plus in the wild card round, 8.5% in the divisional round. It just makes you wonder what's going on. And we are far from the hogs get slaughtered moment, but it looks like something's happening that might be an aberration. It might be a trend. It's going to make it very important when the NFL maps out its schedule for 2025 to be cognizant about dropping games in spots that can get those big eye-popping numbers. Cowboys Giants got 38.5 million on Thanksgiving in the late afternoon spot, and it was a bad game. They need to use that. Boom, let's put a great game in there. They need to find spots where they can strategically put games that are going to get these big numbers to try to breathe life back into this and get, because they always operate from the premise of, if a lot of people are watching it and other people see that a lot of people are watching it, they're going to feel like they're missing out on something, so I better watch it too. And it snowballs. And it can snowball in the other direction. Oh, the numbers are going down. People aren't watching it. Maybe I shouldn't watch it either. So they do need to be concerned about it. And I know how obsessed they are with numbers, because those ratings lead to dollars. And the higher the ratings, the more they can squeeze out of the various broadcast partners when it's time to go back to the table. And as a practical matter, they're going back to the table no later than 2029, because they can kill the current media deals 4 years early. I think they might even try to dangle an 18-game schedule to go back to the table even sooner. But you want to be operating from a position of strength when you do it. If your numbers are declining, you're not as strong as you would be.
Yeah. I want to get to that 18-game schedule in a bit. Let me just stay on this for a second. It could also just be a matter of where they just plateaued out last year. I mean, that could just be the case too. And it's not anything sort of negative. It could just be, okay, last year was the high, and the interest in the whole Taylor Swift thing was obviously way more rabid last year than this year. So maybe that's a factor. Where I want to go with this is we're talking about Chiefs Bills, Sunday late CBS. I've heard this now from multiple people. It's not just one. I'm a big Chris Mad Dog Russo listener. He's been on this for a while, but now I've heard this way outside of the Mad Dog world, where people are quote unquote chiefed out. There's Chiefs fatigue. the narrative that the refs are helping the Chiefs. Obviously, Troy went nuts last week, and that got a lot of support. There is Chiefs backlash. Does that translate to the rating going up or down? I'm not sure, because I would think the three-peat will bring some people in. Can this team three-peat? I don't know if the Chief fatigue is real, if it's going to affect the rating, but you still have Mahomes and Kelce, which is a draw for the fringe fan. Where's your stand on the NFL fan and the Chiefs right now?
Well, just by way of anecdotal evidence, I've made the mistake years ago of putting my email address out there, so I get a lot of communication with fans who believe that I am in charge of anything and everything at NBC, at other networks, at the league office, and they complain to me. One thing I noticed on Saturday as that game went on, I was getting a lot of complaints about the Chiefs. I'm sick of the Chiefs. The officials are helping the Chiefs. Shame on Patrick Mahomes for flopping, even though Josh Allen has perfected the art of the flop, and there's potential 15 yards in field position to be gained from it. Until they make it a penalty, maybe they should. That's a different conversation. Guys are going to do it. But, with the Cowboys, it's love or hate. People will happily tune in to watch them be miserable. I wonder if the opposite for the Chiefs is apathy. And when people have become worn out by all things Chiefs, they just don't watch. They'd rather not watch than root against the Chiefs, because we've learned that rooting against the Chiefs is a fruitless endeavor.
Yeah. So then I guess the flip side of that is you would think, well, I don't know, maybe, are people going to tune in Sunday to see if the Bills can end the dynasty, end the run? I don't know if that's going to happen, but it's surprising to me that more people are, well, I shouldn't say more people, but you have this, I think I would say large amount of people who are sick of the Chiefs. Whereas I go with, for me, there's still nothing better than sit down and watch Patrick Mahomes for 3 hours because of how good he is. But that seems to have faded for a lot of people. And
I think it's human nature too, right? We build them up, we tear them down.
Yes,
and then after 100%. We tear them down, we build them up again. We get bored with excellence that continues to manifest itself over and over again. We'd like some variety. That was what Pete Rozelle hated back in the 70s. You got the same 2 or 3 teams running the league, and then there's these other teams that can't get out of their own way. Let's find a way to insert more parity. And the NFL's broader message to all fan bases that you too can get to the playoffs next year, even though you were abysmal this year. It's proven out. But the problem is, AFC, good luck, no matter how generational your quarterback is. You got Lamar Jackson, too bad he can't beat Patrick Mahomes. You got Josh Allen, too bad he can't beat Patrick Mahomes when it matters. And I'm sure, look, I'm not sure of it, but for the people who think that the NFL currently wants the Chiefs to win, I don't know, at some point that worm's going to turn, and it's going to be that the NFL kind of realizes, licking the finger and sticking it in the air, the wind's blowing away from the Chiefs. And so what's going to happen then? They're not going to get the calls, and everybody's going to say, oh, all these other teams are getting the calls now because the NFL realizes the fans are sick of the Chiefs. And I hate going there, Jimmy. Yeah. I hate fueling that because I don't believe anything is rigged. I think that in the absence of transparency when it comes to the replay system, and we have no idea when a play is overturned by replay assist, whether it's somebody in the stadium who did it, whether it's somebody in the league office who did it, who's breathing down that person's neck when they're doing it. There's so much secrecy that leads to conspiracy theories, and that leads to people thinking things are rigged. The only thing that I do buy into is the idea that because they pretty much obliterated the firewall between business and football integrity, officials might think subconsciously they'll be happy with me if I help the team that I think they want to be successful.
Interesting. Do you know, because obviously you have a million sources, how sensitive right now do you think the league, the front office, Roger Goodell is to the Chiefs referee issue after Troy Aikman really made it a focal point in that game? It's one thing for nut jobs on Twitter or you or I to sit here and talk about the refs and the Chiefs.
Or us nut jobs.
Yeah, but Troy doing it during a game is another level. What have you heard about what's going on inside the league office about that?
Well, as it relates to the broadcasters, again, from my own experience, I know that there are certain things that will prompt someone at 345 Park Avenue to contact someone at NBC Sports headquarters complaining about what I've said, what I've written, whatever storyline I might be pursuing that they would rather I not pay attention to. I can't imagine that Jimmy Pitaro hasn't gotten a phone call this week from somebody at the league office disagreeing with whatever Troy said, explaining it away. Maybe during the game they wanted to drop Walt Anderson in to rebut whatever Troy Aikman said. We saw that happen. Remember that bizarre moment? It was a Raiders-Lions Monday night game where all of a sudden Walt Anderson's there on some meaningless intentional grounding non-call. So
yeah.
There is a sensitivity to that. There absolutely is. And as it relates to the players who spoke out, we were talking about this before we started. The item I posted at PFT just before I came down here, Joe Mixon got fined $25,000 by the league for something he didn't even say. They misread an item on SI.com that accurately attributes a quote on Twitter to TJ Houshmandzadeh, the former Bengals receiver. They claimed that Mixon said it, and he clearly didn't say it, and they fined him $25,000. And you think about all the other stuff, like Will Anderson, he probably got a letter. Does
right.
D'Amico Ryans get fined? He kind of walked up right to the edge of the water and, maybe dropped a rock in and ran away. He didn't call out the officials, but we kind of got his point. I wonder how many other letters like that are going to go out. If they're going to send one to Joe Mixon for something he didn't say, I can only wonder what they're going to send out to the guys who actually did say things that were critical of the officials.
I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think they trotted out Walt Anderson on the NFL Network over the weekend to defend the refs. I mean, just so embarrassing. Underdog is the best place to cash in on all your takes during the playoffs. Which players are going off and which ones are ice cold. With over 5 million happy players and $2 billion won, Underdog makes it fun and easy to cash in on all your favorite athletes' performances. With their pick'em game, you can win up to 1,000 times your money just by choosing higher or lower on player stats, i.e. yards, touchdowns, interceptions, and more. Underdog is the only pick'em platform that puts the power to cash out in your hands. Now you can either keep writing with your entry or tap the Win Now button to cash out whenever you want. Every dog deserves a second chance, and with Underdog Rescues, you can get your money back and receive a promo if an early injury causes your entry to lose. What I'm looking at for this week with Underdog is simple. A lot of players playing for incentives. You have wide receivers who need a certain amount of catches, running backs who need a certain amount of yards. I'm looking at those players, and that's where I'm going to go for a lot of higher plays on Underdog. Underdog is the best place to play pick'em. Download the app, sign up with the promo code Sports Illustrated, and deposit now to get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly. That's promo code Sports Illustrated. Must be 18 years or older, 19 years or older in Alabama and Nebraska, 19 years or older in Colorado for some games, 21 years or older in Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado for some games. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. In Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT STEP to 53342. In New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. All right, let's move on from the Chiefs. I want to talk about Netflix for a second and then tie that in with sort of the 18-game schedule as well. There were some reports that came out earlier this week where Netflix got a massive subscription bump in the fourth quarter. Obviously, 2 NFL games. They also had the Tyson Paul fight. WWE moved Monday Night Raw over there starting in January. So I'm not saying it's all because of the NFL, but Netflix gets a big bump in subscribers in the month of December. We all know there were 2 games there on Christmas Day. This 18-game schedule keeps getting talked about. I had Richard Deitch on this podcast last week, and I said to him, I may have pushed it too far, and I said the days of CBS and Fox Sunday at 1 and 4 may be over sooner than later. Maybe it's a situation where, I don't know, Netflix gets a 1 o'clock package and those networks get a 4 o'clock. But the streaming services are coming in. I don't think there's any two ways about that. Is it tied in, do you think, with the, how much of a factor is the 18-game schedule in getting the media deals ripped up and doing new ones? Or can they do the 18-game schedule, then bring in the streaming services? How do you think it's going to play out?
Well, I was talking to some folks about this over the weekend because I have believed that it would make sense to launch the international package of 16 neutral site games while they have 17 regular season games and sell that to somebody like Netflix. 9:30 a.m. Sunday package that we currently see mainly on NFL Network, but like ESPN Plus has had one in the past. And my understanding is Netflix doesn't want to screw around with a less than package. Netflix would want a major package, and a 9:30 a.m. Eastern package on a Sunday isn't going to perform like Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening, Thursday evening, whatever other evening they can cram into, like all the ways they've found to put cheese in the crust of pizza. They're going to keep finding ways to play on other nights. And I think Netflix wants to be at the table for a massive package. And so the other angle here, and this all relates to the timing of the TV deals. Currently, they run through 2033. The league has the right to tear them up 4 years early. The league could go to the NFL now if they can persuade the union to agree to 18 games. And I feel like they've got the union on the ropes for 18 games, and the union is going to kind of voluntarily just fall through and give up 18 games. They could take that last weekend of the season, the 18th game, the 19th week, and sell it to whoever they want. That they're committed to X number of weeks, currently 18 weeks, to Fox, CBS,
well, that's interesting.
ESPN, ABC, NBC, Amazon. We got one more week of football, and it's even more open season than the 2 games we carved out for Christmas Day and stiff-armed Amazon and all the other existing partners and sold it to someone else. So the final week of the season, in theory, could be sold to Netflix.
That's really interesting. Wow. I kind of feel like, I know Roger Goodell made the comments about the 18-game schedule in the last few weeks during an interview, but I'm almost like the 18-game schedule to me is almost like a boy who cried wolf situation. Like, we've heard about it for so long. How about it just happens already? We've heard about it since this. When it was a 16-game schedule, we thought it was going to be 18. They went to 17. And it's like now when the reports come that he says something about an 18-game schedule, I almost don't even pay attention to it because it's like, all right, just tell me when it's going to happen already. Because, with that 18-game schedule, what the fan and the person listening to this podcast wants is they want that game pushed to President's Day weekend. We've heard about this for so long. Is this ever going to happen?
Let me give you the quick history as concisely as I possibly can,
yes,
which
please.
may not be all that possible. This all started 2010 thereabouts. Roger Goodell started to criticize openly the quality of the preseason game as the pretext for taking 2 preseason games and making them regular season games and moving that needle, because it used to be 14-6. They moved it in the late 70s to 16-4. He wanted to move it to 18-2. Now, right about the same time, the NFL was forced to take player health and safety seriously, and it's impossible to reconcile more football with player health and safety. So they backed off. 2020, when the union and the league were back at the table for a new CBA, the union agreed to a 17th game because they knew how this was going to play out. If we say no, they'll lock us out. We'll miss all the offseason. Guys will take out a bunch of ridiculous loans to pay their bills, and then we'll blink and give them the 17th game just in time for the season to roll around. So let's just do that deal. So now it's the same vibe. But remember this. Last time around, the union's position was over our dead body. And they drove a hard bargain. They got the best deal they could. Now you got Lloyd Howell, the executive director of the NFLPA, responding to it months ago by saying, well, who doesn't want more football? I know I do. I think that Goodell has been ramping it up now because, and Jimmy, this is one of those news issues that 0.002% of my audience cares about.
Okay.
There's some disarray and dysfunction at the NFLPA right now. They offered buyouts to half of the 150 employees of the union. So they're kind of teetering. So the NFL's throwing a lifeline here. We do a deal for an 18th game. You need an infusion of cash. Nothing like this extra weekend of football and whatever massive amount we would get from Netflix if we sold it to them as soon as we could practically reconfigure the schedule. I think that's why he's been talking about it recently. He was on Bloomberg TV last week. He said it's a logical step. Then he was on Jason Kelce's show and said it will probably happen. That's a message to those who really pay attention to the granular details. The union is wobbling, and this is a way to get them out of quicksand. Let's get an 18th game. You'll get more money. You'll get more dues. We'll expand the rosters. Everybody wins.
I still can't get past that 18th week being sold because they'll get so much money for that package. So that makes me think they really want the 18-game schedule to happen more than ever. So maybe we'll actually finally see it.
Here's another reason to move, too. Let's move before next year's numbers prove that this year wasn't an aberration. That's another reason to get it done.
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to switch gears here. Does anyone in the league care about the fact that it seems really bizarre that all of these teams in the playoffs have their coaches interviewing for jobs? Is there no way in terms of timing with the schedule that you can not have anyone interview till after the Super Bowl or at least after your team's eliminated? There's something. It just seems bizarre to me that Ben Johnson's coaching at a divisional game last week, but he spent the whole week doing interviews. I don't. Maybe it's just me, but that seems. If I'm the league, I don't like that look.
Bill Belichick had some strong comments about that on his Let's Go podcast this week, that bad teams that fire their coaches can disrupt the playoff runs of good teams by planting these ideas in the heads of their key coordinators. And Sean Payton has explained this recently in one of his press conferences leading up to their wild card game. When you're under consideration for a head coaching job during the playoffs and you're grinding, and it should be an every waking hour proposition, getting your offense or defense ready for a playoff game. When you come home at night, if you've got a family, if you've got a wife, you walk through the door, wife isn't going to say, hey, how's the game plan coming for Saturday night? Wife is going to say, hear anything about the Raiders? Hear anything about the Jaguars? What about the schools? I was looking at the schools in Chicago. Here's where I think we should live. So it becomes an inherent distraction. And I've seen guys try to talk their way out of it. No, if you commit to the idea that from Sunday to Sunday, wild card to divisional, you're going to be all in all the time, fully focused. I mean, they're like that in the regular season anyway. You're going to be fully focused on doing what you have to do to get your team ready, searching for your own tells, self-scouting, trying to get ahead of whatever is on film from 17 games for the other team. You could find enough to keep yourself busy without sleeping that week. You're going to carve out part of that time to do interviews, to think about getting a staff together, doing research about the city. It is an inherent distraction. The only thing they could do, Jimmy, is delay everything until after the Super Bowl. No interviews, no hiring, no anything. But the problem is you'd still have the agents back channeling. Guys would hear things. It wouldn't be the same level, but it would still be there. It's impossible. Once you fire coaches, it's impossible to not have the natural candidates for those jobs start thinking about the possibility of taking one of them.
Yeah. It's always seemed bizarre to me. Let me stick with this with coaching. It came and went pretty quick. No chance Deion goes to the Cowboys?
I think that this was a calculated publicity stunt by Deion and by Jerry. Look at when it came out. It came out during the Vikings-Rams playoff game. Now, when they decided to move on from Jason Garrett 5 years ago, that came out during an Eagles playoff game against the Seahawks. So it upstages the game that's on. Some of the folks in the industry babbled for a few news cycles about, oh, this is real, this is real. And then it just goes away. Look, it gets Deion's name in circulation for the future. It may have gotten him a raise or will get him a raise in Colorado. And we're talking about the Cowboys. That's all Jerry Jones wants. You know that Sunday ticket trial from this past summer? I read that entire freaking transcript. Jerry Jones' testimony makes it clear. He cares about being interesting. He doesn't care about winning. He wants to be interesting. So here's Deion, Ultimate Reality Show. And it all fizzled out. And that's what makes their coaching search weird to me. They're going to interview Brian Schottenheimer for a second time today. They just interviewed him for 4 hours yesterday. I don't know how you sell that. Even Jerry, the master salesman. I don't know how you sell Brian Schottenheimer to your fan base and try to take the tarnish off the star. I feel like he's got some other play up his sleeve. I don't think it's Deion, but I can't imagine him presenting Brian Schottenheimer as the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys.
There have been minor rumblings here and there. I'm not sure if it's even from anyone in the know, but if the Chiefs win the Super Bowl, Travis Kelce retires. Does he come back for one more? What have you heard about that?
I think we've all just kind of looked at this and assumed that at some point he's going to realize I can make a lot more money doing whatever I'm going to do next. And at some point, I just need to go do it. I remember when Robert Smith retired unexpectedly after the 2000 season. He said, I want to get out while I can still walk. So the question is, how much more of a cumulative physical toll do you want to put on your body and your brain? We weren't thinking about brains in 2000. We're thinking about just the ability to get from place to place when you're in your 70s. Will Travis Kelce say, now's the time to pull the ripcord? And we've seen him involved in more and more things. The game show on Amazon. He was in that show Grotesquerie on Fox. He did the Saturday Night Live hosting a couple of years ago. He's executive producing different movies. I think if they get to 3 in a row, it just makes sense. Now, he's got every right to come back if he wants to. When he did the new contract, it looked like 2 more years, meaning this year and 1 more year. But I won't be surprised if he walks away. I haven't heard anything tangible, but I won't be surprised if he does, because at some point, just like when you're in college and you're making good money, at some point you got to launch the next level to make better money. For him, he's one of the few guys. Now I'm making a certain amount of money. I got to end this career and jump to the next one where I'm going to make even more money.
Yeah, I always like to see, in any sport, I like to see guys go out on top. So I think if he did win a third, it's a perfect bow on, obviously, a Hall of Fame career. So we'll see what happens there. I'm going to get back here into my world a little bit. I'm fascinated that in his first year, which has been filled with just analysis by paralysis, Tom Brady has the Super Bowl. And he, that whole thing. Oh, let's touch on what happened last week. So I got into it with Deitch last week because I said zero conflict of interest with him doing the Lions game while trying to hire Ben Johnson, because and Deitch was, his retort was, you need to be transparent about it. I agreed. I mean, most football fans know what's happening, but yes, I didn't think there was a conflict in terms of like how Tom was going to call that game. And he ended up criticizing Ben Johnson when they had the receiver throw a pass late in that game. But what Fox did was just ridiculous, where they had Kevin Burkhardt throw like the softball question and Tom looked like he would rather basically be in Guantanamo and didn't answer it. And then they shoehorn in that he's staying there for 10 years, which was, the whole thing was just weird. But what have you heard? Have you heard anything? Fox has Brady on lockdown. Have you heard anything about what Fox and the NFL think about how Brady has done this year?
Well, we know what the NFL thinks about the situation because they've applied restrictions to what he can and can't do. No practices, no production meetings, no setting foot in any team facility other than obviously the Raiders.
But would you agree, you think the league loves that Tom Brady's calling games, though?
Well, I don't know, because is anybody really tuning in to watch Tom Brady and not the game?
I don't think so, but I think the league gets off on that star power quality, like that's who's calling their A game. I think the league likes that stuff, but maybe I'm wrong.
Jimmy, here's when I think the league won't like it. Let me just back up a step.
Yeah, go ahead.
Anytime I hear conflict of interest, some people react to that by presuming the mere existence of a conflict of interest is a violation and you're going to go to jail for it. A conflict of interest is just a recognition of you have two competing concerns that conflict. So when your job is to work for Fox and cover all the teams and give unbiased, objective, frank, candid analysis in the form of 20-second sound bites that you come up with extemporaneously, you don't want any other factors to distract from that mission. And if at the time you're coming up with your 20-second soundbite, you're conscious of, I'm trying to hire Ben Johnson, I should watch what I say because I could screw things up. I could make an issue. I could scare him off. That becomes an example of how the conflict manifests itself. Now, when I practiced law, there were two types of conflicts, the kind that were waivable and the kind that weren't waivable. This one would be a waivable conflict where you just disclose it to everyone. That's where Fox fell down on this. They've acted like there's nothing wrong at all. One of the executives there said it was ridiculous to even suggest there's a conflict of interest. No, there is one. It's ridiculous to ignore it. And how they've handled it is surprising. And I said this last week on PFT Live, and I didn't get in trouble for it, so I'm going to say it again here. I've been with NBC for 15 years now. There is no way in hell NBC would give Tom Brady a microphone when he owns a piece of a team. They would never do it. They would say, Tom, you got to pick a lane. You cannot do this. Fox should have done that, which explains why, if they're willing to do it, then they'll just brush it under the rug, do a word salad, check the box handling of it. But it was, because Jimmy, where is it? Where is it on ESPN? When Herbstreit's going to call the game and they're doing the picks, he won't even make a pick for the game he's going to call. Because fans are always looking for, oh, you're against my team. Well, hell, he owns 10% of the Raiders. That's a factor in what teams are going to look at, or fans are going to look at, when they're trying to assess how objective he is or isn't being.
Yeah, I couldn't disagree more with all of that, but that's fine. We don't have to.
Oh, yeah, that's okay.
I mean, listen, if he was calling a Raiders game,
well, he might be one of these days. What if the Raiders are in the Super Bowl and Fox has it?
Right.
It sounds ridiculous now, but if his plan works, what do you do?
I think Fox won't either. Well, I think Fox would probably have to pull him from that game. But this is what I think.
They will. Yeah. I don't think they will. Let me tell you one last thing. Let me tell you one last thing. I'm sorry. Because I think this is an important point.
Yeah.
Here's where the league will sour on it. When they realize that Brady having this ability as an owner to constantly have his finger on the pulse of the ever-evolving NFL, going into these stadiums, talking to these people, when they see a wavy line between that and the Raiders no longer being a team that the other teams don't have to worry about, that might be when some of the owners say, hey, but we got to stop this. He's got perspective and insight that the rest of us don't have. We go to our own games. He's going to all these games. He's getting all these ideas, and he's made the Raiders better. That's when you'd have an uprising among some owners to shut this down.
I don't see how him calling 17 or 18 games of all these teams would have any impact on. I don't think. How would that give him an advantage? Anybody can watch those games. He's not talking to the people involved in those games, so he's not getting that insight. He's watching film, which anybody can do if they wanted to.
He's going to the games and he's talking to the people ahead of time. He's allowed to talk to people. He just can't do the production meeting, which is kind of a weird thing. He can call the coach and talk to the coach. He can call the quarterback and talk to the quarterback. They let him interview Patrick Mahomes at the team hotel earlier this year. So he's still, his job at $37.5 million a year dovetails with things that could help him as the Raiders owner that the other owners in the NFL don't get to do. And they can do it, but they don't get paid $37.5 million a year to do it.
But don't you think even if he wasn't calling games for Fox, if he wanted to call a coach or a quarterback, he could do that?
Oh, he could do that, but I don't know. You get into tampering very quickly when you have owners of one team contacting players. And
no, I'm saying if he.
Teams.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Right.
Because he's an owner of the Raiders.
Yeah.
He's an owner of the Raiders. We've never seen this before. And the idea, let's look at it this way. Let's say there was an owner like Jeffrey Lurie. All of a sudden, Fox realizes, hey, this guy really knows his shit. He can talk football. Let's put him on games. We would say, what are you talking about? The guy owns the Eagles. He can't call games. And the way this all fell together, he goes to Fox, then he does the deal with Fox in advance. We know that's coming. Then, he's going to try to buy 10% of the Raiders. And that took a couple of years to come to fruition. It all happened so slowly. Like the AP let him have a vote on all the major awards this year because I don't know this, but I believe they just forgot. And when he became officially an owner of a chunk of the Raiders, nobody bothered to say, we probably should ask him to surrender his vote.
Maybe the issue here is that because the Raiders are so awful, I don't feel like it. Like if they were better, maybe I would feel like it's a bigger factor. Like what you just said. Well, who cares if Tom Brady has AP votes? He's not going to vote for Gardner Minshew. Like, he's not voting for anyone on the Raiders. For
Brock Bowers, though, over Jaden Daniels, maybe.
Yeah.
Puts
him
in
a
tough spot. It puts him in a pickle. Conflict of interest. How you resolve it is separate from the existence of it.
Well, the interesting thing is now he's come out and said he's not going nowhere. He's doing this for 10 years. So we're going to have 10 years of conflict of interest. It's going to be
He needs the money to finance the $220 million sweetheart deal that he did to get 10% of the Raiders.
Right. It will be interesting if the Raiders get good. That will be interesting. We started on the refs. I guess it's Sean Hockley is going to ref the first game with the Commanders and the Eagles, and it's Clete Blakeman for the Bills and Chiefs. I was shocked that it was Sean Hockley. This is saying a lot. He's one of the worst refs in the league. I cannot believe they gave him that assignment. Did you have any reaction when you saw that?
Well, I don't, because I don't know how they grade the officials. I do know this. When Peter King was doing his Monday morning quarterback column, and he was at SI.com at the time, he did like this deep dive into the life of an official. And it was unprecedented in the access and the information. And one of the things I picked up is that the officials obsess over their grades like teenagers obsess over their social media followers. And because the grades stack together, and that determines the postseason assignments. And the grading, it can be subjective, but the grading is supposedly what determines these assignments. And without the access to the grading process and knowing how they upgrade, downgrade, give a plus, give a minus to what a guy does, it's impossible to know whether or not the formulation of the numbers is accurate or inaccurate. So, hey, it's in their best interest to have the best officials available to do the biggest games. And I know one of the concerns for some coaches is the fact that they disrupt the crews that work together all season long, right, and they reshuffle them into these all-star crews, and you have new personalities. You go into a new workplace. You got to get to know the people. The
Sure.
Younger guy is going to defer to the older guy. You don't need all that. When you've got a well-oiled machine that's honed by 18 weeks of regular season games, they get 1 week off. So it's 17 weeks of regular season games. Let's put a whole crew out there that's already functioning and not go back to square one with a new crew.
Yeah. All right. Well, I appreciate you coming on. So we've got, to me, this is the last real Sunday, and then you have the spectacle in 2 weeks. I said on Twitter the other day, I get very depressed at this time of the year. Like, you lose the Thursday night game, then you lose Saturdays. Monday, we had the college football. Now we've lost Mondays. I would imagine for you who does this, you still will have the draft and all the coaching changes and stuff like that. But do you get a little melancholy these next few weeks, or it's just as busy for you as the rest of the season?
It just is different. We're on the same calendar as the NFL. When they shift to combine mode, we shift to combine mode. When they shift to free agency mode, we go to free agency mode. We slow down when they slow down. But even then, it never really slows down. We have enough for content 365 days of the year. For me, the end of the season, and with Sunday's game in Philadelphia, it was the end of my NBC on-air Football Night in America duties. Yep. That frees up my life, and I don't want this to be interpreted as a complaint, because we operate in the candy store. Yeah. But you get a little too much candy during football season, because it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, grind, show in the morning, content all day, radio appearances, special editions of PFTPM based on news. And then the reward for that is get on a plane Saturday, 18-hour day Sunday, come back Monday. The reward for getting home safely, get your ass back to work until you do it again. And it's lather, rinse, repeat for 20 weeks. So I get a little bit of my life back when it's not football season. I get weekends. I get some time on Saturday and some time on Sunday to be a reasonable facsimile of a normal human being.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about it not being football season. I love football season, but when it's over, I love the time of year where I can at least do something else than be all football most of the time.
Which is usually writing books. You're up to 3 now, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
I have 3, and I have 7 other manuscripts that I'm trying to figure out what to do with. I started during the pandemic, Jimmy, and I don't know if we've talked about this before, but when everything slowed down and nobody was going anywhere, it just kind of hit me. The stuff that I create online covering the NFL, whatever I write today, by tomorrow, nobody cares, if they even care today. What I write tomorrow, nobody cares about by the next day. So I wanted to create things that would have a little more staying power. Somebody could trip across it a year or 2 from now, whatever the case may be. So I started writing fiction. It was fun, and it balances out. A couple hours a night, if I can find the time, to just let it flow and put my thoughts in a setting where by tomorrow, they're not worthless. And so we've got 3. And I decided also, and I know when people say it's not about the money, it really is about the money. I really don't care about the money. Knock on wood, football's been good to me. I want people to read. That's why the A.J. Brown thing I thought was awesome. You can read as a way to kind of just escape from whatever, especially when it's not football season. Need something to escape? Read a book. So my 3 novels, Father of Mine, the sequel, Son of Mine, and On Our Way Home, A Christmas Ghost Story, 99-cent ebooks on Amazon. I'm going to make like 30 cents each, and I don't care. I would love nothing more, and I love it when I get the feedback from people who read them, who enjoy them, who want to talk about them. When it's NFL stuff, it's polarizing. Half of them hate me, half of them love me. I have gotten very limited, if any, negative feedback on this stuff that I've been writing. So 99 cents on Amazon, that's nothing. You can't buy a candy bar for 99 cents anymore. So hopefully some people will take a look at them. Thanks for giving me a little runway to talk about.
No. I listen. If a lot of people use the line, it's not about the money, but if the books are 99 cents, I think you've proven to the listeners here that they can go buy the book and it's not about the money. So hopefully they check it out on Amazon. And
I sent you one too. So if you're getting melancholy, if you're getting bored, pick up Father of Mine. It's a mob story set in the early 70s in the town where I grew up. My dad was a member of the crew that ran the town, and I saw some things when I was a kid, and names have been changed to protect the innocent and the guilty. But I know you're a big Goodfellas guy. Yep. You'll like it. It'll carry you through the slow time without football.
How about a book on how the mob is connected to the NFL refs? Can we get one of those?
Hey, no bullshit. The first episode of Frontline on PBS, January of 1983, was devoted to the connection between the mob and football. And it's on YouTube, and it is eye-opening. It delves into how they think the mob killed Carol Rosenblum, the former owner of the Rams. I mean, it is incredible. Games being fixed, getting to quarterbacks and coaches and officials. You can't just get to one. You got to get to all of them. There's a lot of stuff in there. And
I'm definitely going to check that out.
over the last 40 years, at least by way of anyone talking about it, but it's definitely out there.
On these nights now we have no football, I'm definitely going to get on YouTube and check that out. It is, I actually, all kidding aside, I have to say, I do find it very, very sad. I mean, listen, we live in a really, really fucked up time, and everything's a conspiracy theory. Nobody believes what they see with their own eyes. But I find it very sad that it's not like one or two people who think the NFL wants the Chiefs to win. The NFL is helping the Chiefs to win. The NFL is telling the refs to help the Chiefs win. Like, it's really, it's sad that that's what people actually believe. But we're never going to get those people to think otherwise. So
let me tell you this. Back in 2010, when the NFL was aggressively fighting the Delaware effort to legalize sports wagering and ultimately won in court, Roger Goodell publicly said, and I'm paraphrasing, but if you increase legal sports betting, it will undermine public faith and confidence in the integrity of the games. And people, normal incidents of the game will lead to speculation of game fixing and other misdeeds. And we put those words back to him at the Super Bowl press conference last year. Shereen Williams, who got an invitation, I didn't. She put those words back to him, and we got the typical word salad response. But that's one of the reasons they cited in fighting gambling. Now, we haven't seen any evidence of that. Well, I should just forward every email I get to Roger Goodell. He'll see the evidence, because a lot of people think the fix is in. They don't have the transparency they need. They should have full-time officials. They need to make us think they're doing everything they can to get the calls right. When they don't do that, it makes people think the fix is in. But the exact fear they had 14 years ago.
My pushback on that as a gambler is that I think, listen, if someone thinks the game is being rigged in terms of gambling, that person doesn't have a clue. Because, for instance, let's say the Chiefs and the Texans with that safety, just as many people lost money as won money on that safety. The thing I'm talking about is people who think, well, the Chiefs are good for ratings. The Chiefs are good for business. Patrick Mahomes, Taylor Swift, we need them in the Super Bowl. We need them in the AFC title game.
Well, that's ridiculous.
Well, that's what's becoming more, that thought is becoming more and more prevalent with the way these games end up. And that's why I think when Troy was as adamant as he was about this is ridiculous, I think that fueled the fire for those people who believe that. The gambling thing I don't take seriously because there's a point spread. So half the people are going to win, half the people. There's no rigging.
Well, but here's where the rigging comes in. If you know the truth about someone's injury, you can pick the right side.
Yes.
If you know that, or if you have a guy who's going to fake an illness like Jonte Porter did and come out of the game, you can load up on the unders on all of his prop bets. So the NFL's been lucky. It has yet to have a scandal in the age of legalized betting.
Right.
There's been some like curiosities. Bijan Robinson didn't play much in a game against the Buccaneers during the 2023 season with an illness that wasn't disclosed. The information is real, and there are people who know it, and there are people who act on it, and that never gets discussed.
The one that raised an eyebrow for me was how there was zero problem all training camp with Christian McCaffrey, and then 5 minutes before the Jet game in the opener, he decided not to play. Then he basically missed the entire year outside of a couple of games. That was the one that was like, what?
Tyreek Hill, broken wrist, suffered in a joint practice with the Commanders, never disclosed until week 10. Broken wrist, where they talked about surgery to shut his season down. I asked the league for comment about it after Drew Rosenhaus pulled the sheet back on it. No response. Asked the Dolphins, no response. That's how they deal with me. They ignore me, and they force me to remember to ask a second time, and then I have to remember to ask a third time. Usually it takes 3. But I forgot to follow up on that one because it all happened in the midst of a bunch of other crazy things. But that's the key. Inside information is real. How are they guarding it? And what are the people who have it doing with it? Those are things that could blow up on the NFL at some point.
That's true. That's all true. All right, Mike, appreciate it. Enjoy the games. Enjoy the rest of the season. And thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Jimmy. Good talking to you, buddy.
You too. Take care. All right, joining me now, as he does every week, for our Traina Thoughts segment from WFAN Radio in New York, SNY TV in New York, my buddy Sal Licata. Sal, how are you?
I'm okay. I'm worried a little bit about you because I know that you're a little sad being that we're down to 3 games left in the NFL season.
It's really 2. Super Bowl is bullshit. It's sad. It's very sad. Very sad. And that college game was terrible on Monday night. Sucks. Just sucks.
Yeah.
I'll get into the NBA now, but
take a vacation in February and then you get baseball coming up. I know baseball nationally is not the same, but I don't know. I don't know what to tell you.
Nothing's the same. Nothing compares to it. Again, I've said this a million times. All these other sports play 9 billion regular season games, but the NFL, what makes it special, and college football for that matter, you get that small window. So it makes those games. And we had the divisional games. I thought all 4 games were very, very compelling.
Yes. Which we were due for after wild card round, which was laid an egg. One of the 6 was good, if not mistaken. And then, we had a good divisional round, but then that's it. As much of the buildup goes to these weeks, every week 18, postseason, wild card round, divisional round, poof, like that, it's over. And now there were 3.
How were the wagers this past weekend?
Not great. Actually, we did hit. I had my friends over, so we were betting like in groups. We did hit one big parlay in the Rams and Eagles game, which made up for the entire weekend, thankfully. So that was okay. But I liked the Texans, and they covered just based off of the extra point. Like the line on Friday was 8.5.
Right. So you got 9.5 on that game?
I did, as part of a parlay, so we were excited with the safety.
Okay, because I was so confused because the last line I saw on that game was 8.5.
Right.
So I really didn't think the safety had mattered, and then I had people telling me it went to 9.5, which I was shocked about.
Before the game, we got it on Fanatics, is what I decided to use just to be specific, and it was 9.5. So we had that, which was great. But then we had the Lions later, so,
Yeah, the Lions. We both said last week we were betting the Commanders.
I know. That's the one that bothered me because I started to get the feel that everybody was picking the underdogs. And then literally on the air during my pick segment, both BT, my radio co-host, and the producer both were taking the Texans and the Washington Commanders. I was like, you know what? I can't go the same thing, so I changed it up. And I'm so mad at myself for that freaking game because you're right with the points. I like the Commanders.
That was the one game we were both like that. We both said that was the game we loved the most last week. I'm mad I didn't bet them on the money line, but I
Yeah.
wasn't passing up 9.5. And then this week, Eagles -6, 47.5 against the Commanders, and then the Chiefs -1.5, same total, 47.5. Where are we going?
I'm probably going to take the Eagles. I'm not going to hop on the Commanders now after missing out last week. And I thought that pick last week, even when we discussed it, was more anti-Detroit's defense or just Detroit in general. I think in whatever weather it's going to be in Philly on the road, that is a tough ask for a rookie quarterback. I don't trust Dan Quinn, as you know. I'd probably lean Eagles right now in that game. What's the other one? What's the other spread?
-1.5, KC.
I'm going to take the Bills. I hate to do it, but if I've been anti-Kansas City all year long, even though they keep beating me, I'm not going to go with them now. Maybe this will be the year the Bills finally beat them. So I'm going to go Eagles, Buffalo. What do you got?
Well, I'm definitely betting the Commanders. Without a doubt. And I pray that
you think
line
they
goes
win?
I think they very easily could win.
Okay.
But I'm not passing up 6. And hopefully it gets to even 6.5, and I could buy it to 7, or I'll buy it to 7. But I think they absolutely can win that game. I'm sort of all over the place. I'm like bipolar on the other game. I want Buffalo to win because I really like Josh Allen a lot. The Bills, they haven't won, blah, blah, blah. But every single person is going to be rooting for Buffalo, and that makes me want Kansas City to win, so everyone's miserable.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, where are you at with Kansas City and Taylor Swift and Caitlin Clark? Where are you at with that?
I'm on the opposite end of the spectrum of let me just say this. I have no issues. I'm not bored of the Chiefs. I'm not tired of the Chiefs. To me, they're still, I've always said they're the best team to watch in terms of watchability. I think the Lions had passed them, and maybe the Commanders have passed them now. But I love sitting down and watching Mahomes and Kelce and how that team operates for 3 hours. I'm not chiefed out. I don't mind them. I think them winning again would be cool, actually. The Taylor Swift stuff has calmed down. I thought ESPN handled it brilliantly. They showed her like once or twice. They didn't. Joe Buck mentioned her once, and that was it, which was fine. Who cares about Caitlin Clark being there? So but Buffalo, if they lost this game, I'd feel so bad for Josh Allen.
Well, and how about a Super Bowl again? If you look ahead to the actual matchup, wouldn't it be more appealing? I'm kind of, I don't want to say Chiefs out or hating on the Chiefs. I'm a little bit bored with it. I feel like the Bills Eagles or Bills Commanders would just be a more exciting Super Bowl matchup than, especially if we're not getting the Lions. Eagles Chiefs again, I don't like that.
For me, the one team out of the 4 that I don't have any interest in is the Eagles. I think a Bills Commanders or Chiefs Commanders Super Bowl. The storyline right there with the rookie quarterback trying to knock down Mahomes, that's what you would get for 2 straight weeks. I love the way the Commanders play. And the Bills too have an exciting offense, and the Chiefs are the Chiefs. I want the Commanders to win that game very badly. I can be happy with either the Chiefs or the Bills winning that game. I would feel very bad for Josh Allen though if he lost.
Now, do you just not like Sirianni? Why anti?
No, I don't know. I don't find them.
Yeah,
there's nothing there that really appeals to me.
They have just been dominant. I don't like them. I do love Saquon Barkley. I don't really love anything else about the Eagles, but my God, the way they just dominate. Also,
well, they didn't dominate the Rams.
They played very well in that game, and the Rams are good. I thought the Rams played a good road game.
The Rams could have won that game easily if.
I don't know about easily, but
all they had to do was score a touchdown the last time they had the ball.
Yeah, I know, but the game never really felt like it. To me, it never felt like it was that close. I felt fortunate to get that Rams cover. Look, and I love McVay and the Rams. I thought they had a good showing. I just feel like the Eagles in the regular season have dominated, and they kind of get overlooked or did get overlooked because of Detroit. The other note of that, Dan Quinn, is he really going to be another one of these short-list head coaches to take 2 different franchises to Super Bowls? Like, God, just
well, he will be
can't
eventually
imagine.
if he still has Jaden. I mean, Jaden Daniels is going to go to a Super Bowl, so that's going to happen eventually.
Yeah.
I don't. I mean, but you don't love Sirianni, so it's not like you would give the Eagles a big coaching edge.
I think Sirianni's a bad head coach, but yet here we are. He's already been to a Super Bowl, and he's about to go to another one potentially, or favored to go to another one.
Yeah, I don't know. The Bills deserve it. Give them their due. You know,
Well, they're gonna have to earn it.
Yeah, they're gonna have to earn it as right.
I'm looking forward to that game, though. I look forward to the Ravens Bills. I feel like that was worthy of championship type game. This is going to be another one. So
yeah, I hated that it had to end on a player choking and dropping a pass. I hate that. I just hate that because a guy.
Agreed. It made me angry, and my friend's like, "Why are you so angry?" It's because Andrews, robbed us of what should have been a game-tying 2-point conversion and then potentially overtime. So regardless of who you're rooting for, to see a potentially great game with 2 great quarterbacks and like that, it bothered the hell out of me.
Forget overtime. I would bet $1 billion that if he caught that pass, there was 1:33 left and the Bills had 2 timeouts. They just needed a field goal. Yeah. So that's why I feel bad for him too. The game was not over if he catches that pass.
Right.
But you just can't drop that. You just can't.
Right, but we wanted to see Allen with the ball with 1:30, and if they couldn't get it done, then we wanted to see overtime. Like, I wanted more from that, and we should have had it. That's the problem.
Yeah. I don't, I think people want to analyze all this stuff about the drop from Andrews. Sometimes in life, shit happens. Like, there's no excuse. There's no. You don't give me either the cold, the quarterback didn't throw it an inch away from him. I mean, I think who called it? Renance and Romo. I think it was Romo who said if he gets that ball thrown to him 1,000 times, he catches it 999. I mean, shit happens. There's no explanation. I hate people trying to find an explanation. There's no explanation. The guy dropped it.
Right.
Did you watch any of the college championship?
No, wasn't. I watched a movie last night. Wasn't into it.
You watched a movie last night. What movie?
You're not gonna like it, but I loved it. Wicked.
With Ariana Grande. Wicked.
Yes, it was. Have you ever seen the play Wicked on Broadway?
No.
It was 2 hours and 40 minutes. Look, I had a long weekend.
The movie, right? Yes, I remember. I took my nieces to that movie. I dropped them off. I didn't stay, and I remember it was like a 4 hour. But from the time I dropped them off to the time I picked them up, it was like 4 hours basically.
Last night was payback for my boys' weekend, and I enjoyed it. 2 hours and 40 minutes. It felt a lot faster. I loved the movie. I thought it was great.
Sal loved Wicked. I
can't wait for the next one. I did love it. I don't know why. Like, did you like Wizard of Oz when you were a kid?
When I was a kid.
All right. Well, I mean,
yeah, but I would never. But I was a kid. I wouldn't watch it now. I don't know. I mean, The Wizard of Oz is fine. It's it's an iconic movie.
Musicals aren't your thing, right? I'm assuming.
Well, no, that's not. I mean, I don't know. I like Grease.
Yeah, me too.
What's another musical? What's another musical?
I don't know. Musicals generally aren't my thing either, but I'm not opposed to them if they're good. This was a good.
I'd have to go check, but my guess is the only musical I've ever seen is Grease, and Grease 2.
I never saw Grease 2.
Oh, it's great. Michelle Pfeiffer in her prime. That's all I got to say.
How about those ones with Anna Kendrick in them years ago? Were those musicals?
Pitch Perfect? Yeah, Pitch Perfect was good. Yeah,
that's a great movie.
Yeah, Pitch Perfect was good.
Too.
Yeah.
I love those movies. Okay.
But Wicked, it's about a witch, right?
Yes, it's basically the prequel to Wizard of Oz.
That's why I wouldn't watch it.
Why?
I'm not watching movies about witches.
It's not. No. It's not about a witch. It's basically how she became the Wicked Witch.
Yeah, I'm out right there. I'm out. out.
No, but it's more than that.
Out.
It's like it's essentially it's a a person not being liked. The underdog story or the excluded story. Non-inclusive, whatever. It's a good story.
I don't want anything but human beings in the movies I watch.
They are human beings.
No, you just said she's a witch.
Well, she wasn't a witch. It's how she became a witch. She was a little
So
girl.
I'm out. I'm out because I don't know anyone in the real world that's a witch. So I'm out.
Okay. Yeah, that's right. You don't even like Star Wars, right?
No, absolutely. No, I don't want to do R2-D2 or whatever the fuck. I want people. Just give me people in the movie who have dialogue, characters talking. No hobbits, Lord of the Rings, all that. No, out. Out. So you blew off the college football championship. You watched Wicked. I'll say one thing.
Yeah,
here's my issue with that. And you sort of make the case that it is so ridiculous that they played that game last night on Monday, January 20th. I wrote about this earlier, but that game should have been on Friday night leading into the two NFL playoff games. People would have been more pumped up. They would have had the night to themselves. All anyone was talking about on Monday was the Bills-Ravens game and Mark Andrews. And that game had zero buzz. Zero.
But was it also because most people felt like Notre Dame realistically couldn't win the game?
I mean, the line was 8.5. That's not, I don't know. I think there are some people who thought, but again, you don't need to have people think about someone winning the game. They just need to cover.
Yeah, well, that's why I didn't watch the game, because I would have been, and I really missed out on some money because I would have been riding Ohio State this whole time, just based on past, like, always Ohio State conference versus other conference. But I didn't want to bet the game, and if I don't want to bet the game and I really don't give a shit who wins, like, what do I care who wins, Ohio State or Notre Dame? I didn't go to either school. I'm not a fan necessarily. I like Ohio State. As a matter of fact, I would have liked to have seen Notre Dame win, but I didn't really feel like it was a realistic possibility. And then the score early on would indicate that Ohio State started pulling away from them.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I watched it. I had Ohio State in about 5 teasers, so I was happy with the result. But I had to be like reminded that game was on Monday night. It was all football the whole weekend, and then they throw that there.
Yeah.
Plus, it was a holiday; people were off. I don't know, weird.
Yeah, weird day. Yeah.
Yeah. We didn't talk about Bob Uecker last week because I think he passed after we taped. And the one thing I just want to say about it, it is amazing to me that he had this popularity and this career that he had while not being a good player. You don't see that a lot, but obviously with what he did with the commercials and Major League and Mr. Belvedere, it carved out like this other career for himself, which was great. And I wanted to bring it up too.
Well,
I tried to get him on this podcast once, and the Brewers PR team could not have been less helpful. Like, I sent an email about wanting to have him on and the whole song and dance, and the response was like, no. Yeah.
Okay.
It was no, and it had a go fuck yourself tone to it. So just wanted to throw that.
Huh. Okay.
That'll be in the book about booking this podcast, but go ahead.
I do think part of the appeal was that he hit multiple things, big things, like Major League was a major. So it just wasn't like, oh, well, he was a long and greatest baseball movies of all time and had the most famous lines from it. Mr. Belvedere at the time was an impactful show back then. I don't know about impactful, but you know what I mean? Like, it wasn't like it was some scrub show. That was a show that I remember watching. Other people remember watching. WrestleMania 3, the biggest WrestleMania of all time. Then WrestleMania 4, like Hogan, Andre, WrestleMania, he was the one who introduced them. So he hit like different pop cultures along the way, well, maybe more specifically in the 80s, that just were transcendent, on top of being the commercials and the Brewers play-by-play guy.
It's a good job by you, bad job by me, because I should have mentioned WWE Hall of Famer. Had to be mentioned.
Yeah. WrestleMania 3 and 4. That's,
Can I give you something really dark? This is so dark, but I just have to say it because it gets me every time.
Yeah.
When I spend my hours scrolling through TikTok every day, so one of the things in my algorithm is, TV shows, especially 80s TV shows. And I guess there's this whole generation of people out there who have no idea like what Mr. Belvedere was,
right,
or whatever. So what will come up at least once a week, it comes up in my feed, is some TikToker with a video from Mr. Belvedere, and they always use like the headline on it that says, "This has to be the darkest moment of a sitcom, the darkest sitcom moment ever, blah, blah, blah." And it's Mr. Belvedere opens the door for one of Wesley's friends. The kid's probably like 8, 9, 10 years old. So he's like, "Oh, hello." I forgot the kid's name. "Oh, hello, so-and-so. How are you?" He goes, "I have AIDS." And everyone on TikTok posts this clip. So when Bob Uecker died, that's what I thought of, unfortunately.
I don't recall that episode, but yeah.
Well, you have to remember it was the 80s and no one knew exactly, trying to get it. Yeah. So
when you say right off the top of your head, like dark is different from sad, but the one thing that comes to my mind for sad from a sitcom was from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. The two things, actually. The episode where Will's father comes back into play and then ends up leaving, and then Uncle Phil and Will's yelling and gives him a hug at the end, and then just the last episode. Those are the two that struck me. I don't remember the one from Mr. Belvedere.
I have to say, I was not a huge Fresh Prince watcher. I watched it. I've watched it, but I wasn't like every episode, every season.
Okay. I love that show. Tatiana Ali was one of my first crushes.
Well, that makes sense. That checks out. I'm trying to think of a sad. I'm sure there's a million, but I'm not going to think of it right now. But
yeah, I don't know why those are the first ones that come to mind that really were.
Yeah, this was more dark than sad.
Do you remember that one, the Mr. Belvedere, or no?
I didn't remember it.
Okay.
But I see it on TikTok now all the time.
Yeah.
All right. Speaking of shows, we talked last week about the Jerry Springer doc on Netflix. Did you finish it?
No, I forgot actually.
I thought it was bad.
You saw the second episode?
I watched both, and
okay.
I thought it was bad and not worth anyone's time, to be honest with you. They just didn't really dig into anything.
The tease at the end of the first was good, to where I was like, okay, now I'm going to find out how it went wrong. I just didn't pick it up. I forgot to. We had the football and all that other stuff, but
I mean, there was a lot left on the table. They didn't dig into anything. I guess my assumption is the whole thing is based around the producer who basically put forth this vile show. So I guess they weren't going to go kill the guy if he's the biggest talking head on the show. But I don't know. To me, it was a big nothing. That's how.
How about though how he started versus what became of that show, and the fact that they beat Oprah, and the way that they did it was obviously cheap and smutty or whatever, but they did it. I mean, that's remarkable to me.
Well, part of what I didn't like about it was when they would show Jerry at that time trying to defend his show, and he would just like blow it off. It's like, Jerry, like your name's on the show,
right? They sold out. They know what they did. They sold their soul to the devil.
And I always thought the show was fake, and they sort of proved that in the doc because they have everyone coaching the guests and telling them what to say. So
yeah, so that's why I thought it was at least interesting. Like, is it great? No, but I thought it was interesting.
Yeah, I thought it was bad. And then I got to watch this Saturday Night Live documentary on Peacock. I went to watch it, though, and I didn't like the descriptions. It kind of turned me off, but I'm still going to watch it at some point.
Wait, the movie or there's a documentary?
There's like a 4-part documentary on Peacock about the 50th anniversary of the show.
Oh, okay. Did you see the movie yet?
Yeah, I did. I liked it a lot. It's not like a great movie, but I like it. Yeah. All right, Sal.
Okay, I got to watch that movie, and I don't know about the doc.
Yeah. That's all I got. Are you going to be locked in Sunday? You have any issues? What do we got on Sunday?
No issues. No issues. I'll be locked in Sunday. All good now.
You don't have to go anywhere.
Locked in Sunday. As of now, ready to go. And I'll be home on the couch.
You don't have to put groceries away.
No. Well, I mean, you never know what's going to happen game day, but no, we should have plenty of time. It's 3:00. I should be locked in. Let's get that stuff out of the way early on. Don't mess with Championship Sunday. So.
Now, what are you going to do when football's over?
That's a great question. I really haven't thought much about it. But a part of me does look forward to getting that day back. You know what I mean? Like,
I agree. Football. I understand.
Yeah. We're like, we love having the football, but without it, it's like, oh shit, what am I doing today? I got nothing. 1:00. So I'll miss it probably in a few weeks, but the first few weeks without it'll be good.
Yeah, the bad thing for me is it just gives my parents more time to use me as their personal assistant and IT guy. Because at least I would have let them know on Sundays, don't bother me. I gotta go today. I gotta return a cable box. You know, it's like annoying. So annoying.
Right, exactly.
All right, Sal. Enjoy the game. Right. So you got Eagles and Bills.
Bills. Yeah, Eagles, Bills.
I'm gonna go Commanders and Chiefs.
Okay.
We'll see how it goes. And then the Super Bowl in 2 weeks.
All right. Good luck.
Kendrick Lamar at halftime. You're into that?
Nah. I like Kendrick, but I'm over the halftime stuff.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Be well.
All right. I'll talk to you later. Talk to you next week.
Yep. All right. My many, many thanks to Mike Florio. My thanks to Sal Licata. My thanks to you for listening. And if you missed any recent episodes, make sure you go to Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to your pods. Check them out. Last week, Richard Deitch on all the latest sports media news was on the podcast. Iron Eagle 2 weeks ago. Triple H from the WWE. Early January interview as well. So give those a listen. Subscribe to the pod. Rate and review on Apple if you can as well. All right, that wraps it up. We'll see you next week. Enjoy the AFC and NFC Championship games. Should be good ones. And stay safe and take care.